The Zephyrian delegation arrived at the UES Horizon space station at 600-hour ship time. Their crystalline forms shimmered with anticipation. The alien ship glided smoothly into the docking bay, its surface reflecting the stars like a giant mirror. This was humanity's most important diplomatic meeting, and everyone knew it. Ambassador Kelly Walsh stood at the viewing deck, watching the alien vessel dock while clutching her morning coffee. She took a long sip from her favorite blue mug, letting the warmth spread through her fingers. The coffee was still too hot, but she didn't care. She needed it. The Zephyrians had traveled 6 months to reach Earth's orbital station. They carried what they claimed was a treaty that would revolutionize galactic trade. Their leader, Prime Harmonizer Zulax, had transmitted urgent messages about the time-sensitive nature of their proposal. The messages arrived daily, each one more urgent than the last. Kelly looked at her reflection in the window. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of a sleepless night. The diplomatic team had worked until 300 hours, preparing for this moment. Now, at 600, most of them were running on coffee and determination. Captain Robert Bailey greeted the aliens in the docking bay. He stood straight in his dress uniform, trying to look impressive. Behind him, the human delegation shuffled into position. Something seemed off about them. The airlock hissed open. 7 Zephyrians floated out, their bodies made of living crystal that changed colors with their emotions. Right now, they pulsed with excited yellows and greens. Prime Harmonizer Zulax led them, standing 3 meters tall with arms that branched like trees. "Welcome to UES Horizon," Captain Bailey said, his voice steady. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we are honored by your presence." Zulax's crystal form chimed like wind chimes as he moved. His voice came from no visible mouth, resonating directly in the air. "Captain Bailey, we thank you for this welcome. We bring gifts of knowledge and proposals of mutual benefit." Behind the captain, the human diplomatic team seemed sluggish. Their responses came slowly. Several held steaming mugs, and one junior diplomat, Eric Porter, actually yawned during the formal greeting ceremony. His hand quickly covered his mouth, but the Zephyrians noticed. Kelly Walsh stepped forward, her coffee mug still in hand. "Prime Harmonizer, I am Ambassador Walsh. We've prepared Conference Room Alpha for our discussions." The Zephyrian leader's crystalline head tilted. "Ambassador, forgive my curiosity, but what is that dark liquid you consume? Several of your team carry similar containers." Kelly looked down at her mug, suddenly aware she hadn't put it down. It's coffee. A morning beverage. Very common among humans." "Ah," Zulax said, his form shifting to a curious blue. "A nutritional requirement, perhaps." Before Kelly could answer, Dr. Susan Blake from the science team stumbled slightly. She caught herself on the wall, her own coffee sloshing dangerously in its mug. "Sorry," she mumbled. "Long night." The Zephyrians exchanged what might have been glances, their forms flickering with unreadable patterns. They had studied human culture for months, but this behavior wasn't in their files. As the group moved toward the conference room, Kelly noticed her team's condition more clearly. Lisa Martinez from Trade Relations walked slowly, her eyes half closed. Jack Harrison from Legal Services squinted at his tablet like he couldn't focus on the screen. Most concerning was Dr. Pete Walker from the medical team, who had forgotten to remove his sleeping clothes under his formal jacket. The Zephyrians glided smoothly beside them, their excitement undiminished. They chattered among themselves in their chiming language, occasionally switching to English to include the humans. "Your station is most impressive," one younger Zephyrian said. "We detected your coffee substance from the docking bay. The aroma particles are quite unique." Kelly forced a diplomatic smile. Inside, she calculated. Her team had averaged 3 hours of sleep. The coffee machine had produced 12 pots since midnight. This was not ideal for humanity's biggest diplomatic moment. They reached Conference Room Alpha. Through the door's window, Kelly saw junior staff still setting up, moving in the slow motion of the deeply tired. One assistant stood frozen, staring at a box of data pads like he'd forgotten what they were for. Kelly turned to Zulax with her best diplomatic expression. "Prime Harmonizer, shall we begin?" The alien leader pulsed with eager green light. "By all means, Ambassador. We have waited long for this moment." As they entered the room, Kelly took another sip of coffee and prayed it would be enough. Conference Room Alpha looked impressive with its polished metal walls and holographic displays. The large oval table could seat 20 people comfortably. Windows showed Earth spinning slowly below, blue and white and perfect. The Zephyrians entered first, their crystalline bodies catching the morning sunlight. They moved with purpose, each one taking an assigned position. Prime Harmonizer Zulax floated to the head of the table, his form pulsing with organized patterns of light. The human delegation followed more slowly. Lisa Martinez from Trade Relations fumbled with her tablet while balancing her coffee mug. Her hands shook slightly as she tried to manage both items. Finally, she set the tablet down and focused on not spilling her coffee. Jack Harrison from Legal Services squinted at his display screen. The brightness hurt his tired eyes. He dimmed it, then realized he couldn't read it properly. He brightened it again and winced. Between adjustments, he took long sips from his world's best space lawyer mug. The Zephyrians began unpacking their equipment immediately. Holographic projectors emerged from cases that seemed too small to hold them. Quantum data cubes floated into position above the table. Each movement was precise and practiced. Ambassador Walsh took her seat and watched her team struggle to settle in. Eric Porter dropped his stylus 3 times before managing to activate his note-taking program. Dr. Blake started to sit in the wrong chair, realized her mistake, and shuffled to her assigned spot. "Please, take your time," Zulax said, his tone patient but puzzled. "We understand different species have different morning rituals." Kelly appreciated the gesture but felt embarrassed. Humanity's first major alien trade negotiation, and her team looked like college students after an all-night study session. The Zephyrians finished their setup in minutes. Complex diagrams floated in the air, showing trade routes that spanned star systems. Economic projections scrolled past in alien script that translated itself as humans looked at it. Meanwhile, Pete Walker tried to sync his medical scanner with the room's systems. The device beeped repeatedly, each sound making him flinch. He finally muted it, but then couldn't tell if it was working at all. "Whenever you're ready," Zulax said. His crystal form settled into what might have been a relaxed posture. The other Zephyrians waited with perfect stillness, their bodies humming softly. Kelly nodded and looked at her team. Half of them were still drinking coffee. The other half stared at their screens with unfocused eyes. She cleared her throat. "Thank you for your patience, Prime Harmonizer. We're almost ready to begin." She watched Frank Torres from the communications team type the same password incorrectly 4 times. His frustration grew with each attempt. Finally, Kelly quietly helped him, noting that he'd been typing his apartment door code instead. The Zephyrians began to pulse with different colors. Kelly had studied their emotional spectrum. The shifting purples and oranges suggested confusion, maybe concern. They whispered among themselves in their chiming language. "Is this normal human behavior?" one of them asked in English, probably thinking the humans couldn't hear. "The files said nothing about morning rituals affecting cognitive function," another replied. Kelly pretended not to hear. She turned to her team. "Let's begin with the opening presentations. Dr. Blake, would you start with the biological compatibility report?" Susan Blake looked up from her coffee mug like a deer caught in headlights. Oh yes, the compatibility report." She fumbled with her tablet, accidentally opening her personal photos instead of the presentation. A picture of her cat filled the screen before she quickly closed it. The Zephyrians leaned forward, their interest apparently genuine despite the chaos. One younger alien, designated as Harmonizer Vex, tilted its crystalline head. "Your morning beverage seems quite important. Should we pause until its effects are complete?" No, Kelly said quickly. "We're fine. Just a long night of preparation. Very thorough preparation. Jack Harrison nodded too enthusiastically and knocked over a stack of data pads. They clattered onto the floor, the sound echoing in the large room. Very thorough, he repeated, bending to collect them. Zilax's form shifted to a gentle yellow. We admire dedication. Please proceed when you feel optimal. Kelly sighed inwardly. Optimal was hours away, but Earth's future trade relationships couldn't wait for optimal. She stood, clutching her half-empty mug like a lifeline. Let's begin, she said, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. Prime Harmonizer Zulak stood before the assembly, his crystalline form glowing with enthusiasm. Complex holographic charts filled the air around him, showing vast networks of trade routes connecting distant stars. These quantum tunnels will reduce travel time by 90%, he explained, his voice resonating with excitement. Earth's products could reach the outer rim markets in days, not months. The human delegation tried to follow along. Kelly Walsh nodded at what she hoped were appropriate moments. Beside her, Jack Harrison's eyes kept closing. He jerked awake each time, pretending he'd been deep in thought. Dr. Susan Blake squinted at the quantum equations floating before her. The numbers seemed to swim and dance. She gulped her remaining coffee, hoping it would help. It didn't. Halfway through the presentation, Kelly's communications device buzzed urgently. She glanced down, trying to be discreet. The message from maintenance made her stomach drop. Executive coffee station. Critical malfunction. Estimated repair time. 2 hours. She looked around the table. 5 of her team members had empty mugs. They'd been counting on refills during the break. Now those refills were impossible. The Zephyrians continued their presentation. Unaware of the brewing crisis, they displayed mineral compositions from 12 different systems, each one pure enough to revolutionize Earth's manufacturing. Pete Walker from Medical slumped in his chair. His eyes had stopped focusing entirely. When Zilax asked about biological contamination protocols, Pete just stared blankly. Dr. Walker, Kelly prompted gently. Pete startled. Yes, contamination. Very important. We have protocols. He fumbled through his notes, accidentally showing his grocery list on the main screen. The Zephyrians pulsed with concerned yellows. They whispered among themselves again, their chimes taking on worried tones. Lisa Martinez felt the crisis first. Her hands began to shake. The quarterly trade projections she'd memorized vanished from her mind. When asked about Earth's export capacity, she could only remember her cat's feeding schedule. Perhaps we should take a brief recess, Zilax suggested, noticing the human's distress. Kelly wanted to say no. This was too important. But she watched Eric Porter trying to take notes and realized he'd been drawing spirals for the past 10 minutes. A short break would be helpful, she admitted. The moment Zilax agreed, the human team scattered. Kelly watched them stumble toward the door, all heading for the same destination. The backup coffee station, 2 floors down. In the hallway, the situation became clear. A line had already formed at the secondary coffee machine. Staff from all departments waited with empty mugs and desperate expressions. 30-minute wait, someone called from the front. Dr. Blake leaned against the wall. I can't remember the carbon bonding equations. I've known them for 20 years. Jack Harrison nodded miserably. I keep trying to recall trade law precedents. All I can think about is whether I fed my fish this morning. Kelly gathered her team. Listen, we need emergency measures. The Zephyrians are already suspicious. They think we're broken, Pete said flatly. They keep asking if we need medical assistance. Back in the conference room, the Zephyrians huddled together. Their forms flickered with rapid color changes as they discussed the situation. The humans appear to be malfunctioning, Harmonizer Vex observed. Their performance degrades by the minute. Zilax considered this. Perhaps their biological systems require maintenance. They seem dependent on that dark liquid. Should we offer assistance? Another Zephyrian asked. We have molecular synthesizers. Let us wait, Zilax decided. This may be a critical cultural observation. Meanwhile, Kelly found Chief Engineer Frank Davis in the maintenance bay. He had the coffee machine dismantled across 3 workbenches. "How bad is it?" she asked. Frank held up a melted component. The heating element fused with the pump mechanism. "It's like someone tried to brew solid metal." "Can you fix it?" "I'm trying. But this is executive-level coffee technology. These machines are more complex than our fusion reactors." Kelly stared at the scattered parts. Humanity's first major diplomatic victory hung in the balance, potentially defeated by a broken appliance. "Do whatever it takes," she said. "The future of Earth's economy depends on that machine." Frank nodded gravely. He understood. In space, coffee wasn't just a beverage. It was survival equipment. Chief Engineer Frank Davis received the coffee emergency alert on his personal communicator. The message flashed red with triple exclamation marks. "Diplomatic kickoff, CRISS. Immediate RESPONSE required." He studied the alert with the seriousness it deserved. In his 15 years aboard the station, he'd handled reactor failures, hull breaches, and asteroid impacts. But this was different. This was coffee. Frank assembled his best technicians in the maintenance bay. "Team, we have a code brown situation," he announced. "The executive coffee system is down during first contact negotiations." The technicians' faces went pale. Sarah Mills, his second-in-command, gasped. "During the Zephyrian meeting? The one that determines Earth's economic future?" "Exactly," Frank confirmed. "We need that machine operational in 30 minutes or less." Meanwhile, in Conference Room Alpha, Ambassador Walsh called for the brief technical recess. She tried to sound casual, like this was perfectly normal diplomatic procedure. The Zephyrians interpreted this differently. They began recalibrating their translation matrices, convinced they'd misunderstood something critical. Harmonizer Vex adjusted frequency analyzers, while others checked their presentation data for errors. The human team huddled near the door, whispering urgently. "There's a manual coffee press in my office," Lisa suggested desperately. "That makes 2 cups, Jack pointed out. "We need 12. "What about energy drinks?" Eric proposed. Dr. Blake shook her head. "Different chemical composition. We need pure caffeine delivery." Kelly made a decision. "Amy, I need you to run a supply mission." Junior diplomat Amy Chen straightened. Despite her exhaustion, she recognized the importance of this assignment. "What do you need, Ambassador?" "Go to the backup station. Get whatever coffee you can. Bring it here like your life depends on it." Amy nodded and left immediately. Her footsteps echoed down the corridor as she broke into a run. In the maintenance bay, Frank's team worked with desperate efficiency. The coffee machine lay disassembled across multiple tables, its components sorted and labeled. "The thermal regulator is fried," Sarah reported, "and the pressure valve melted into the filtering system." Frank grabbed his tools. "We'll bypass the regulator and jerry-rig a manual pressure control." "Johnson, get me parts from the old emergency coffee unit in Storage Bay 7. "That machine's been decommissioned for 5 years," Johnson protested. "Its parts still work." "Move." Back in the conference room, the Zephyrians had finished their recalibration. Prime Harmonizer Zulax approached Kelly with concern radiating from his crystalline form. "Ambassador Walsh, are your people unwell? We have medical technology that might assist." Kelly forced a diplomatic smile. "We're fine, thank you. Just some minor technical adjustments to our cognitive optimization systems." Zulax's form flickered with confusion. "Your brains require technical adjustments." Before Kelly could explain, Amy Chen burst through the door. She carried a tray loaded with emergency coffee supplies, like a combat medic bringing plasma to wounded soldiers. 8 cups, Ambassador," she panted. It's all they had ready. More brewing now. The human team descended on the tray. Hands reached desperately for cups. Pete Walker grabbed his with shaking fingers, inhaling the steam before taking his first sip. The Zephyrians watched this display with fascination. They recorded everything. The humans' desperate expressions, their careful handling of the cups, the immediate change in posture as they drank. Remarkable, Vex whispered. The liquid appears to have medicinal properties. In the maintenance bay, Frank performed engineering miracles. He welded components that were never meant to work together, creating a hybrid monster of coffee technology. Will it work? Sarah asked. It'll work, Frank said, or it'll explode. Either way, we'll know in 5 minutes. He initiated the startup sequence. The machine gurgled, wheezed, then began to hum. The smell of brewing coffee filled the bay. My God, Johnson whispered. You've done it. Frank wiped his hands. Not yet. We need to test it. He poured a cup, took a careful sip, and nodded. That's coffee. Ugly coffee, but coffee. Sir, Sarah interrupted, checking her tablet. The delegation needs 15 cups for full cognitive restoration. Frank looked at his monstrous creation. Then we'd better start brewing. The future of humanity depends on this machine holding together. The machine groaned ominously, but continued to produce the vital brown liquid. Frank patted it gently. Just a little longer, old girl. Just a little longer. The fresh coffee arrived in conference room Alpha like reinforcements reaching a desperate battlefield. Amy Chen and 2 assistants carried trays loaded with steaming cups, the aroma filling the air. Kelly Walsh watched her team transform before her eyes. As the caffeine entered their bloodstreams, shoulders straightened, eyes focused, and minds sharpened. It was like watching machines boot up after a power outage. Dr. Susan Blake took her first sip and immediately began reviewing the quantum equations. The numbers that had swum meaninglessly before now arranged themselves into clear patterns. Wait a minute, she said, her voice suddenly alert. These calculations assume constant energy states across dimensional barriers. The Zephyrian scientists perked up, their forms shifting to attentive blues. You understand quantum threading? One asked with surprise. Of course, Susan replied, now on her second cup. But your model ignores gravitational flux variations. See here. She pointed to a specific equation. This would cause cascade failures in systems with binary stars. The Zephyrians pulsed with excited yellows. They had been presenting this theory for months to various species. No one had spotted this flaw before. Across the table, Jack Harrison studied the trade agreements with renewed clarity. The legal language that had seemed like gibberish 30 minutes ago now revealed concerning details. Prime Harmonizer, Jack interrupted politely. Section 12.7 of your proposal grants Zephyrian merchants exclusive rights to all quantum tunnel access points. That would give you monopoly control over faster-than-light shipping. Zilax's crystalline form flickered. That is correct. We assumed this was understood. It was hidden in subsection C. Jack continued, his legal training fully active now. Wrapped in technical jargon about maintenance protocols. Rather clever, actually. Lisa Martins, properly caffeinated, pulled up economic projections on her screen. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she ran new calculations. Based on these exclusive rights, Zephyrian control would cost Earth approximately 40% in trade revenue. The room fell silent. The Zephyrians shifted colors rapidly, their forms betraying surprise and perhaps embarrassment at being caught. Kelly Walsh leaned forward, her third cup of coffee providing perfect diplomatic clarity. I believe we need to discuss this treaty more thoroughly. Pete Walker from Medical had transformed completely. He activated holographic displays showing biological compatibility studies. Also, your safety protocols assume silicon-based metabolisms. Carbon-based life forms like humans would suffer cellular damage from prolonged exposure to your quantum fields. We were not aware, Harmonizer Vex admitted, her form dimming slightly. The negotiations took on new energy. The human team, firing on all cylinders, began dismantling and rebuilding the Zephyrian proposal. They identified 17 major issues and 43 minor concerns that needed addressing. Eric Porter, The junior diplomat who had been drawing spirals earlier now took detailed notes. He caught subtle implications in the aliens' responses that even senior staff missed. His questions became increasingly sophisticated. The Zephyrians found themselves on the defensive. Their respect for human intelligence grew with each passing minute. These creatures, who had seemed barely functional an hour ago, now demonstrated remarkable analytical abilities. "Your transformation is remarkable," Zelax observed during a break. "The coffee substance appears to enhance your cognitive functions dramatically." Kelly nodded. "It's a biochemical necessity for optimal performance. Most humans require it for complex mental tasks." "Fascinating," Zelax mused. "We assumed your earlier state was your normal condition. We had, frankly, wondered how your species achieved spaceflight." Dr. Blake laughed, a genuine sound now. "Without coffee, we probably wouldn't have invented the wheel." The Zephyrians conferred among themselves, their forms pulsing with rapid color changes. When they returned to negotiations, their entire approach had changed. They presented more honest proposals, without hidden clauses or disguised terms. "We must apologize," Zelax said formally. "We mistook your uncaffeinated state for lack of intelligence. We see now that humans possess remarkable mental capabilities when properly fueled." Kelly smiled, raising her mug slightly. "Perhaps our next meeting should be scheduled for after morning coffee hours." The Zephyrians pulsed with agreement. They had learned an important lesson about human culture, one that would reshape their entire diplomatic strategy. During the lunch break, the atmosphere in Conference Room Alpha had changed completely. The suspicious tension from the morning had given way to genuine curiosity and mutual respect. Cultural attaché Helen Woods arranged a special presentation about human coffee culture. She had quickly prepared visual aids showing coffee's journey from plant to cup. The Zephyrians gathered around, their crystalline forms pulsing with interested purples and blues. "Coffee begins as a seed," Helen explained, showing holographic images of coffee plantations. "The plant grows in specific climates on Earth. We cultivate many varieties, each with unique flavors." Harmonizer Vex leaned closer, her form shimmering. "You grow this substance specifically for cognitive enhancement." "Originally, no," Helen admitted. "Humans discovered coffee's effects by accident thousands of years ago. It became part of our culture, our social customs, our daily routines." She showed images of coffee shops, business meetings over coffee, and friends chatting with steaming mugs. The Zephyrians recorded everything with their advanced sensors. Prime Harmonizer Zelax found the roasting process particularly fascinating. "You apply heat to change the chemical structure. This seems similar to how we process crystalline nutrients." Helen nodded. "Different roast levels create different flavors and caffeine concentrations. Dark roasts, medium roasts, light roasts, each serves a different purpose." The presentation moved to brewing methods. The Zephyrians watched videos of espresso machines, pour-over techniques, and French presses. Their forms flickered with amazement at the variety of approaches. "Humans have developed such complex methods for one substance," a younger Zephyrian observed. "On our world, we simply absorb nutrients through our crystalline matrix." Dr. Blake joined the discussion, explaining the science. "Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in the human brain. This prevents drowsiness and enhances alertness, focus, and reaction time." The Zephyrians pulsed with understanding. "So it's not nutrition, but a neurochemical modifier." "Exactly," Blake confirmed. "Though it's also become a social ritual. Humans often bond over coffee. Business deals, friendships, even romantic relationships often begin with meeting for coffee." Zelax's form brightened. "This explains much about human behavior we've observed. Your species' rapid technological advancement, despite biological limitations. Perhaps this chemical augmentation is key." Helen smiled. "That's one theory, though we managed some achievements before coffee reached global distribution." "Still," Zelax continued, "your transformation this morning was remarkable. We must document this for the Galactic Council." Other species will need to understand this aspect of human physiology. The Zephyrians requested permission to analyze coffee samples. Kelly approved, and soon they were scanning the molecular structure with instruments that looked like crystalline flowers. Fascinating, Vex exclaimed. The compound is relatively simple, yet its effects on your neural pathways are profound. We've encountered species that require specific atmospheres, certain radiation levels, even particular sound frequencies for optimal function. But chemical cognitive enhancement through voluntary consumption, this is unique. Jack Harrison brought different coffee varieties for the Zephyrians to examine. This is Arabica. This is Robusta. Different species of the same plant, like having cousins with different personalities. The Zephyrians attempted to taste coffee using specially modified sensors. Their forms flickered wildly as they processed the data. Complex flavor profiles, one reported. Bitter, acidic, with numerous subtle compounds. How do humans find this pleasant? It's an acquired taste, Kelly explained. Most humans don't like it at first, but the effects make it worth learning to enjoy. Pete Walker discussed medical applications. We've studied coffee's health impacts for centuries. It affects everything from liver function to athletic performance. The Zephyrians grew more intrigued. They began making connections between coffee culture and human achievements. Your major scientific breakthroughs, Zilax noted, many occurred in institutions with strong coffee cultures. Universities, research facilities, technology companies, all feature prominent coffee consumption. Helen nodded. There's even a joke that programmers are machines that turn coffee into code. Not a joke, Eric Porter called from across the room. Scientific fact. By the break's end, the Zephyrians had filled their data stores with information about coffee. They understood they hadn't just encountered a new trade partner. They discovered a species whose entire cognitive function depended on a plant-based chemical. We must revise all our human interaction protocols, Zilax declared. This changes everything. The afternoon session began with a completely different energy. The human team sat alert and focused, their coffee cups strategically positioned within easy reach. Extra pots waited on side tables, and Amy Chen monitored supply levels like a military quartermaster. Ambassador Kelly Walsh opened with a new proposal. Prime Harmonizer, we've restructured your treaty based on mutual benefit rather than exclusive control. She activated the holographic display. The new framework showed shared access to quantum tunnels, with both species contributing to maintenance and security. The revenue split was fair, 60-40 during the first 5 years to account for Zephyrian technology, then 50-50 thereafter. Zilax studied the proposal, his crystalline form shifting through thoughtful blues and greens. This is considerably different from our original terms. Your original terms were designed for species you assumed were less intelligent, Jack Harrison said bluntly. We're not less intelligent. We just need coffee first. The Zephyrians pulsed with what might have been embarrassment. They conferred in their chiming language, colors flickering rapidly. Dr. Blake presented revised safety protocols. These modifications protect carbon-based life forms from quantum field exposure. We'll need shielding stations every 1,000 kilometers along the tunnel routes. A Zephyrian scientist examined her calculations. This would increase construction costs by 12%. Better than losing 40% of potential trade partners to cellular damage. Blake countered. Many galactic species are carbon-based. The negotiations continued with rapid exchanges. Lisa Martinez dismantled the Zephyrians' economic projections and rebuilt them with Earth-favorable terms. Pete Walker insisted on medical monitoring stations at all transit points. The Zephyrians found themselves constantly revising their positions. These caffeinated humans spotted every hidden clause, questioned every assumption, and demanded clarification on every technical detail. Your mining rights proposal, Eric Porter noted, claims asteroids in systems we haven't even explored yet. That seems presumptuous. Harmonizer Vex flickered defensively. Standard expansion protocols suggest. Standard for whom? Eric interrupted. Show me the galactic law that supports preemptive claiming. The Zephyrians couldn't. There was no such law. As the hours passed, the treaty transformed completely. What had started as a Zephyrian-dominated agreement became a balanced partnership. The humans insisted on environmental protections, labor standards, and cultural preservation clauses. "You're asking for significant concessions," Silax observed, his form dimming slightly. Kelly leaned forward. "We're asking for fair trade. Your technology is valuable, but our location is strategic. Earth sits at the intersection of 3 major galactic trading zones." She brought up star charts showing trade routes. "Without Earth's cooperation, your quantum tunnels bypass 2/3 of potential markets. We're not just customers, we're partners." The Zephyrians absorbed this reality. They had approached Earth thinking they would deal with a primitive species, easily manipulated. Instead, they faced shrewd negotiators who understood their own value. Additionally, Jack added, "We want cultural exchange programs. Your young scientists studying on Earth, our researchers visiting your crystal cities. Real partnership, not just commerce." By 1400 hours, the treaty had been completely restructured. The Zephyrians had agreed to most human modifications. They even added provisions they hadn't considered: dispute resolution protocols, technology sharing agreements, and joint exploration initiatives. "This is much more complex than we anticipated," Silax admitted. His form had settled into respectful golden hues. "You humans are formidable negotiators." Kelly smiled, lifting her 5th cup of coffee. Only after 10 a.m. The Zephyrians made note of this. Several of them had already added optimal human negotiation hours to their diplomatic databases. "We'll need to present this to our High Council," Silax said. They expected different terms. They expected to take advantage of sleepy humans. Pete said with a grin. "Next time, schedule afternoon meetings." The session continued with fine-tuning details. Each point was debated, analyzed, and refined. The humans maintained their mental edge, fueled by steady caffeine intake. The Zephyrians gained new respect with every exchange. As the clock neared 1600 hours, both sides had what they wanted: a fair, comprehensive trade agreement that would benefit both species for generations. The final treaty signing took place in the Grand Assembly Hall of the UES Horizon. Representatives from Earth's major nations attended virtually, their images displayed on screens around the room. The Zephyrian delegation stood in formation, their crystalline bodies catching the ceremonial lighting. Ambassador Kelly Walsh reviewed the final document one last time. The treaty now included something unprecedented in galactic history. Article 15, Section 3, officially known as the Coffee Clause. Dr. Blake read it aloud for the assembly. "No diplomatic negotiations between humans and any species shall commence until all human participants have consumed their preferred morning caffeinated beverage. Any agreements reached before proper caffeine levels are achieved will be subject to review and renegotiation." The human delegates applauded. The Zephyrians pulsed with colors of approval. What had started as an embarrassing weakness had become official policy. Furthermore, Blake continued, negotiating parties must provide adequate coffee supplies for human delegates during extended sessions. Failure to maintain coffee availability constitutes a breach of diplomatic protocol. Prime Harmonizer Zulak stepped forward. "The Zephyrian Collective formally accepts these terms. We have learned that human cognitive optimization requires specific chemical support. We respect this biological necessity." He paused, his form shifting to amused pink. "We also request cultural exchange rights regarding coffee cultivation and preparation. Our scientists find the correlation between caffeine consumption and human achievement fascinating." Kelly smiled. "Granted, we'll send coffee specialists to your homeworld." The treaty signing proceeded with appropriate ceremony. Each delegate applied their signature: humans with traditional pens, Zephyrians with harmonic resonance patterns that left glowing marks on the quantum paper. As ink met paper, history changed. The Coffee Clause became galactic law. at least for human interactions. To commemorate this moment, Kelly announced, "We have a special presentation." Staff wheeled in a cart bearing a magnificent coffee service. Crystal cups, specially designed for Zephyrian physiology, sat beside traditional human mugs. The aroma of fresh brewed premium coffee filled the hall. Prime Harmonizer, we invite you to share in our most important cultural ritual. Zelax accepted a crystal cup, his form flickering with curiosity. Other Zephyrians followed suit, carefully mimicking human coffee-holding techniques. To partnership, Kelly raised her mug. To understanding, Zelax responded. The Zephyrians' first taste of Earth's coffee caused spectacular light shows. Their crystalline forms pulsed with rapid color changes as they processed the complex flavors. Several junior delegates actually chimed in harmonious surprise. "Remarkable," Zelax said. "No wonder you require this substance. It's intensely stimulating." "That's just medium roast," Pete Walker joked. "Wait until you try espresso." News of the coffee clause spread rapidly through diplomatic channels. Within days, other species began adjusting their human interaction protocols. The Altarians rescheduled all meetings to afternoon hours. The Bendithi installed coffee makers in their embassy ships. The mysterious Void Whisperers sent a formal request for coffee plant samples. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss this new development. After reviewing the Zephyrian report, they voted unanimously to adopt the coffee clause as standard protocol for human diplomacy. "Let it be known," the Council chairman declared, "that humanity's biological requirement for coffee optimization must be respected in all future negotiations." Back on the UES horizon, the Zephyrians prepared for departure. Their cargo holds now contained something unexpected: 5 tons of premium coffee beans and 3 industrial-grade coffee machines. "We will establish the first off-world coffee plantation," Zelax announced proudly. "Our agricultural scientists are already designing crystalline greenhouses." Dr. Blake provided detailed growing instructions. "Remember, altitude affects flavor. And watch the soil acidity." "We will master this art," Zelax promised, "though I suspect our coffee will never match Earth's original." As the Zephyrian ship departed, Kelly stood with her team at the observation deck. They watched the crystalline vessel disappear into quantum space, carrying news of humanity's greatest diplomatic victory. "You know what this means," Jack Harrison said, raising his mug. "We just made coffee the most important diplomatic tool in the galaxy." Kelly laughed. "Better than weapons or technology. We conquered space with coffee." From that day forward, every species in the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were brilliant negotiators, sharp traders, and innovative thinkers, but only after their morning coffee.